Hello everybody, I am Baltmatrix, and today we are taking a look at Transformers Legacy SKULLGRIN. I purchased this figure over at Amazon.com. Of the newest figures in this wave, SKULLGRIN has to be my favorite in terms of robot mode. It's both blocky and aesthetically pleasing at the same time, and how many figures do you know that are using a skull as a crotch plate? Overall, the aesthetic works very, very well, and it feels good in the hand. And that head sculpt the head is just wonderful. I love it. It's just gnarly and a wonderful nod to the figures, or to the characters, Generation 1 Pretender mold, while the rest of the body is a nod to the figure's inner robot mode. It's just a wonderful combination of Pretender inner robot and Pretender outer shell, and it works incredibly well here. A 360-degree view shows you that the figure is very compact, very blocky, and comes with 4 accessories. Technically 5. We'll take a look at them in just a second. Yeah, as a robot, it's cool, but without the guns, it kind of looks like a robot in a costume. That's not a negative. That really isn't here, because the robot has the, crotch of the original Pretender shell, the shoulders of that Pretender shell, and the head sculpt. And let's take a look at that head sculpt up close, shall we? I love this stupid head sculpt. It's so good. Now, they do make an error here. Assuming that SKULLGRIN does not have a lower jaw, he actually does, especially in the show and in all the animations, and he was in Master Force, by the way. He does have a lower jaw, but here, nothing. He has some posability in the head, which is all on a ball joint, so lots of movement there, though this is the default look, and it does take up most of the top of the chest, and he could do peekaboo! Peekaboo! I'm gonna kill you! Peekaboo! Posability-wise, SKULLGRIN has the mentioned head ball joint. Shoulder is on a swivel and a hinge, though the hinge on both arms very tight for in and out movement. Bicep swivel, bend at the elbow is over 90 degrees, no fist articulation. Torso articulation is there. Legs can kick forward and back at just about 90 degrees, but the armor of the skirt does get in the way, and it's not even skirt armor, it's molded plastic onto the top of the leg. In and out movement is highly limited due to the armor here that is a little bit articulated, not much though. Swivel at the thigh, upper thigh, bend at the knee is 90 degrees. Ankle articulation has a little bit of play forward and back, and then the ankle rocker that's a lot. If the figure could kick its legs out all the way, then you could fully do the splits with this guy. The weapon pack on the back of the figure is really neat. I like this a lot. It comes with 4 different guns. The first 2 are these guns that then double as swords for the figures, and they work incredibly well, except they're made of very, very soft plastic. That's my only complaint. And getting them in and out of any of the peg holes on the chassis or on the figure can be problematic. Holding them as swords, not hard at all. Holding them as guns, not hard at all either, but then we'll get to the vehicle mode, and that's where things get a little bit trickier. In fact, on the one hand, it's a little bit too loose. On the other hand, it's just a little bit too tight. Weird. The other guns on the back can also unpeg, and then you're left with this tiny little tail section that pegs into his back and gives him a tiny little monster tail. It's actually kind of cute. The cannons themselves are pretty good. They're hollow inside, but they do have 2, count them, 2 5mm ports on the inside, and then 1 on the outside, and then a 5mm port on the cannon itself. So you're supposed to be able to peg them into his shoulders, like this. But then they can be pegged on other things that are pegged on other things. There's a lot of variety of posability there with those cannons, and I appreciate that. The figure itself has 2 5mm ports on the bottom of his feet, none on the outside of his legs, but on the back of his legs, where the treads are, there are 2 on each side. There's 1 just behind the head on the shoulder. Then there is a post here on the lower back that's where you peg the tail in. The bottom of the tail has a peg. And then the sides of the tail section have pegs. There are pegs on the bottom of the forearms, pegs on the top of the shoulders as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of pegs on this guy. You can really armor him up. Oh, and then there's a flight stand peg in his keister. SKULLGRIN's transformation is interesting, actually. Start off with fold up the fists into the forearms. Then come to the head and fold the head all the way up. Collapse the peekaboo horns. And then come to the chest and pop the chest open. Then put the head back down and then push on the inside of the chest to unpeg the backpack. Flip the head all the way inside. And then I like to collapse the horns back along the back of the head. And that will fold that into place and keep the head folded up like that. Close the chest up and peg that into place. Come down to the arms and push the shoulders back towards the back of the vehicle mode, and then fold the arms or shoulders in, and then turn the arms so that the forearms are pointing towards the back of the figure, and sandwich them up. And you have just enough clearance for shoulders and arms and skull. Then push the arms into the tabs that are the tab sections on the top of the biceps. Next, come down to the legs and push the entire upper torso back until the horns almost stab the figure in its own keister. And then swing the leg forward like so, like it's sitting out. And actually, that's kind of hard to do because there's a lot of friction right there. Snap the legs together. Come to the back where the treads are and unfold the treads all the way out. Fold the toes up and they will peg into place into these slots that are inside the shins. Fold the legs out and the back of the legs will peg into these slots on the back of these struts. Then take the tank treads, turn them, and there's a little slot on the outside of the shoulders that they will peg into. And they will also peg into these slots on the outside of the forearms. And then we just need to peg in the cannons on the top of the tank mode. Almost done the transformation. Take the knees and collapse them down, and then hinge them down again into the shins, fold them back, and there are slots on the inside, or slot holes on the inside of the knees that will peg into these pegs on the top of the legs. And just snap them into place. Next, take the guns. The handle of the gun will go into the front peg, and you got to wiggle it in place because it makes some squeaky sounds. And then there is a slot hole just underneath the barrel that will loosely peg into place on these pegs on the outer legs, on the outside of the legs. And we are done. I will freely admit I utterly hate this alt mode. Yes, it is a tank, but I don't quite get it. The back of the tank and the sides of the tank work perfectly well. The gun turret works perfectly well. But what is going on up here? Like, what is that? What is that supposed to be? Is that a hover tank in the front and then treads in the back? Is that what's going on? Are they on skis? What is going on? There's nothing back here. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Is it supposed to be turned around like this? Is that what the tank mode is supposed to be? Because there are tanks like this in real life that have a drag behind them that, mess up the area behind. I mean, that could technically work because, there's the engine up front. It's just so weird. I guess what they're going for is an homage to the original figure. Because that original figure had treads in the back and nothing really up front. So I guess that's what they're going for. Comparison-wise, here is Legacy skids. You can see that there is some definite length difference, but they're roughly the same height. A better comparison in terms of length would be Voyager Override. It's just about the same length as Voyager Override. It's actually just a little bit longer. Just a smidge. Now, I said I really don't like this vehicle mode, and I don't. The only thing I wish they did was it's obvious that there are pieces down here for the legs that were sandwiched together. Had they added some molding, even the tiniest hint of treads in the front, I wouldn't have an issue. I really wouldn't. I would have been fine with it. Or if there was like a cutout here where there was an actual wheel or something to give me an idea that, oh, this isn't like a weird hover tank in the front and a treaded unit in the back. Because let's face it, that's just weird. It's so asynchronous and asymmetrical in terms of a tank mode with, treads in the back, nothing up front, that it just completely whiffs on my love of it. I really want to like this, but the fact that it's just the legs hanging out up front just does not work for me. Transformation back into robot mode, there is one slight trick that I would like to show you. First, fold and unpeg down the treads in the back, then pull the legs up, and then reach inside and push these hinges in, and then you can then bring the knees down and snap them into place. Then just reverse the rest of the transformation as you would. That's the one thing I wanted to show you, because getting the knees into position is a little bit tricky. Overall, I like SKULLGRIN quite a bit, but that alt mode is rough. I mean, it just is, and it's not my favorite. Now, that for you might not be an issue, but it is kind of a turnoff for me. Though, the robot mode is excellent, and this is the way I'm going to be posing and displaying the figure in robot mode. So folks, let me know what you think of SKULLGRIN down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Baltmatrix, and I will catch you all next time.